I don't know. I just decided to go check out a Greek Orthodox, I guess, service or mass or whatever they call it. Growing up Catholic and having been to lots of masses, altar boy, all that stuff, no one ever messed with me though. They make the sign of the cross like almost non-stop, constantly, and they don't sit down. The whole thing is standing. There was a very short section where you could sit down for a little bit, and my feet hurt bad. Physically, very interesting. I mean, beautiful. You gotta say, all those awesome Eastern Orthodox images of like Mary and Jesus and, you know, different saints, I guess, apostles and stuff. I don't really know what all was up there, but there was a lot of them. Really cool artwork. Extremely friendly, welcoming, for sure. They certainly venerate Mary at least as much as the Catholics do. I get the feeling that she's a much bigger... I almost get the feeling that they have more of a Gnostic connection. Kind of a bridging the gap between Gnosticism and Catholicism. And, well, bridging several gaps. And Greek philosophy, Greek quote-unquote mythology, which a lot of the New Testament stories, you gotta say, kind of mimic. But the person's places and names have been changed to protect the innocent. Yeah, I was raised Catholic, born into it. Dad was not Catholic, Mom was. Mom's whole side of the family, quite Catholic. Dad's whole side of the family, never really knew. Maybe some kind of Methodist. They didn't really go. No one ever really went. We went to Mass pretty regularly. And then when I got a little older, junior high and high school age, the CCD classes got really long. Like, it started off as a little kid, my CCD classes, Catholic Sunday school class, it was in a lady's house, like in her living room, you know, like kindergarten age and stuff like that. Eventually, they became in a classroom at the Catholic Church, the school part of the Catholic Church, and they became like 3 hours long. So Dad would stay home and watch football, and we'd have to go to Mass, which is an hour, and then a 3-hour CCD after that, once a month. Seems so unfair. It was brutal. And where I grew up, they didn't do confirmation when you're in like 6th, 7th, 8th grade. They waited until you were like 16 and, you know, could really think about what you were doing. And I remember feeling overwhelmed and like just confused and like, what is this? And perfect timing, right on cue. A priest comes to visit our class one day as we're getting ready to start on this Catholic confirmation journey, and to explain to us what it was and to kind of, you know, answer questions. And I remember him saying, it's a serious thing. Once you're confirmed for life. And what you're doing when you're getting confirmed is you're becoming a soldier for Jesus. You don't do that without knowing what you're doing. You don't do that lightly. You don't do it without being serious about it. There were several things you had to do, like boxes you had to check off. One of them was you had to pick a sponsor. It was a no-brainer who I was going to pick, an uncle of mine. And he said we would go to an abortion protest or something like that. And I thought, oh, really? Okay. And I wasn't really looking forward to it, but you had to do an activity. You had to do something like that, and that's the one he said we were going to do. And anyway, this priest is in the classroom, and he's saying, it's a serious endeavor. You need to know what you're doing. You don't do it because your parents want you to do it. You do it because you feel it in your heart that you want to do it. It's your path. And he said, it's not like you can't get into heaven if you don't get confirmed. He just wanted to make sure that we did it because we wanted to do it and not because we're just going along with it's just what you do. Mom and Dad my parents before me got confirmed, and his daddy before him got confirmed, and by God, I'm going to get confirmed. No, you got to go through all the steps and be involved and be present and all that stuff. So when I heard him say, don't do it because your parents want you to do it, and it's not like you can't get into heaven if you don't get confirmed, I was like, I'm out. That's all I needed to hear. And because I was only doing it because my mom wanted me to do it. And so I went home and was glad to tell mom and dad that I decided not to do it. I was feeling overwhelmed and confused, and like I didn't really know why I was doing it, and I wasn't feeling the calling or something, you know. It just seemed like a lot of work. And mom started crying. Dad said, can't you just do it for your mom? And I said, didn't you just hear what I just said, what the priest just said? I told them everything, what he said. And so that was my out. So I got out of it. So I didn't do it. But I had always believed in God. I mean, from the time I can even remember. I mean, of course I was raised in it. I was scared. I didn't want to burn in hell. I didn't think it was any laughing matter. But I didn't know what I was doing at that point. And he said you could always do it later. So like I didn't have to do it right then. I just thought let's pull back a little bit and make sure we understand what this is, and let's not do it this year. And you know, maybe I'll do it later. Like I was the only one in my family that didn't get confirmed. Fast forward, you know, graduate high school and start going to college and move and I don't know, start getting exposed to other philosophies on campus, things that you hadn't thought about, things your parents didn't like really expose you to or teach you about. And so, you know, you're just a sponge. I was a sponge, and I just soaked things up and repeated what I heard like a good monkey. I don't know, I must have been feeling kind of like something was missing or something, so I started to get back into my faith. I started to get back into my religion. I started going to church during the week, like in the mornings before going to class and stuff. Got to know the priest really well, went and like hung out with the priests and the monks and stuff, and like ate with them and stuff. And I thought maybe, I wasn't sure what was happening. Like maybe I was being called for some kind of spiritual path, you know, but I didn't know, so I was just doing the only thing I knew, which was Catholicism. And one day I had a job. The guy in charge he liked to talk about his religion. So he was engaging me in conversation, and I knew what I believed. You know, there was no doubt in my mind. I knew what I believed. As far as I was concerned, the only thing that was true was Catholicism regarding religion. I wouldn't have been raised in something that wasn't completely true. Like, who would do that to their kids? Surely my parents knew everything. And so I was raised in the truth. So I knew what I believed. And he asked me if he gave me a pamphlet to read, if I would read it. And I said, sure, why not? Like I said, I knew what I believed, and I wasn't afraid that I would get, like, you know, steered wrong or something like that, because what could he possibly give me that's going to, you know, shake up my world and make me reconsider everything I think I know? So he gives me a Seventh-day Adventist pamphlet, and I went home. I was looking forward to it, and I just laid on my bed and I read it, and my jaw dropped, and I was like, oh my God, if half the stuff in here is true, I got questions to ask the priest. I don't know how old I was. I have no idea. 22. The Catholic Church is evil. I mean, there was 666 stuff in there. It was heavy. And like some of the things I just thought, well, there can't be an answer to this. There can't be an explanation to this. Like, if the Bible says that you shall keep the seventh day holy, why do we go to church on Sunday, the first day of the week? Why would it be the first day of the week and not the seventh? It clearly says in the Ten Commandments. The Catholic Church changed the Ten Commandments to the Lord's Day. It was another thing in the pamphlet. And I thought, what? They changed the commandments? So the next time I went to confession, which was weird because, I mean, like the priest was like, we just sat across from each other. It wasn't even like anonymous. And during that session, I told him, I said, I got some questions. And I just started asking him a couple of things. I told him I read something. And when I went down this list of things, he kind of chuckled and just shrugged it off and said, it sounds like Seventh-day Adventist stuff. And I thought, well, so what? What it sounds like, is it true? Are these things true? And he said, well, we don't go by the Bible, we go by tradition. And I thought, holy crap, that's the answer? That's your answer? You gave up your ability to be like a father and like donated your life to this, and it's not even based on the Bible, it's based on tradition. What tradition? I mean, like, so turns out I didn't know what I believed, and it did rock my world, and I didn't know what to do with all this. I never felt this before. I never felt anything like this. Some time went by, a couple of things happened where I tried to kind of shake it off and like get back on the path or whatever. One of them was a story coming out of a small town, like right on a highway, like not even hardly a town, just a trailer park in a church, a Catholic church. And anyway, in that trailer park, there was a Mexican family. There's an article in the paper, and my mom sent it to me or something. There's an article in the paper about this lady had a Mary statue that would cry blood, tears of blood. You know, you hear these things every now and then, in the Catholic world at least, Mary crying and bleeding and stuff, tears of blood. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna drive out there and go see this thing. People were going to it and like praying in front of it and like getting blessings and stuff. And I thought, I'm gonna go check it out. And I got there, and they had a little, it was obvious that they were expecting visitors. They had kind of a revolving visitation going on. I got in line, and I met a lady who lived on a farm out in the area, and she stared at me and thought I was super interesting or something, and told me she thought that I was being called to be a priest. That was weird to me, because like she didn't know me from anyone. I just thought, well, I want to be a dad I want to be a dad, and I don't want to, I don't want to be a priest. I didn't think, but I didn't know. I thought if God made it clear to me that he wanted me to be a priest, I mean, what would I do? Say no? Like, if it was obvious that God wanted me to do something, I would do it. But if it's all in my own head, I'm going to need a lot more than that. Or some lady who lives on a farm telling me to be a priest, that's not enough. So anyway, when it became my turn to go in and kneel before the little statue of Mary that cries tears of blood, I knelt down and started to pray a Hail Mary, and this was another first for me. I felt something real negative. Really, the way I could describe it, I felt something real inauthentic inside my core. It wasn't a voice. This is probably what happens to people when they say, I heard a voice. It wasn't really a voice, but it was a compulsion to get off my knees and get out of there. And so I just kind of like, to not make a scene, kind of like went real fast and sort of like, just faked it, whatever. And got up and got out of there. And just kind of shook off that feeling, but it was a bad feeling. Not saying it was evil, but it felt like it was an authentic part of myself almost saying, maybe it was God within, being like, no, this isn't the direction. This is not the direction. This is this is backwards. I don't know, but it was something real compelling that made me not want anything to do with it. So I left, but not before being invited over to this lady's house, sit on a couch with her and her husband, and have her give me a poster of Our Lady of Guadalupe, a classic image that everyone knows. But the story is that Mary appeared to a guy, I think his name was Juan Diego, in Mexico, and there was a miracle there, and the priest didn't believe him, so she gave him a sign, which was to gather the flowers on the mountain where she was appearing to him, and roll them up in his tunic, and then go to the priest and give him the flowers. And so when he went to the priest to give him the flowers, he unfurled his tunic, and voila, this image of Our Lady of Guadalupe was emblazoned on his tunic, and that's the image. And that tunic is still behind glass, in Guadalupe, Mexico. Now to this day, you can go there and see it. I never have. So anyway, she gives me a poster of it, and I'm thinking, so it is definitely a weird experience. I don't know what that was when I knelt down in front of Mary, but the other thing about her saying I should be a priest, that was weird. Maybe what happened with the whole Seventh-day Adventist thing was I never got confirmed, and so it left me weak and vulnerable, and I wasn't a soldier for Jesus. Instead, I was susceptible to tactics now, and now look at me, I'm questioning my own faith, that what I knew was true, and just, put my mind in my pocket and tried to go backwards in time, close my eyes like a little kid, and pretend like I could go back to the way it was. And so I thought the answer then was to get confirmed after all. Let's see if that fixes things, if that clears up some things, some questions in my life about my faith and religion and stuff. So I go back to my hometown, and while I'm there, I go to one of the Catholic churches that we used to go to, and I just walked to the little priest's house next to the church, rang the doorbell, and he was like, "What do you want?" And I asked him if I could talk to him for a minute, so he invited me inside. Basically, I told him I wanted to get confirmed, and he looked at me like, "You're in your 20s, why didn't you get confirmed with your class?" And so I told him the story about the priest coming to class, and when I said the part, and he said, "It's not like you can't get into heaven if you don't get confirmed," and the priest jumped in then and he said, "Well, we changed that. That's been changed." I thought, what? Who changed it? How do you just change that? So you do have to, I made sure I was hearing him right. I said, so you do have to be confirmed as a Catholic to get into heaven now? And he said, yes. There was some conference. I have actually had another priest since then say that that's crazy and that that's not true. So I don't know if he was just messing with me or he didn't want to deal with me. He was like, "No, we don't confirm people after, they had their chance. These are kids. These are little kids getting confirmed, and we're not going to have some guy in his 20s getting confirmed." He wasn't into it at all. He did not want to do it. For all I know, God just gave me the words that I needed to hear to propel me further along on whatever path this was going to be. But I walked away at that moment feeling in my heart that I was done with Catholicism. And to me, that equated to pretty much atheism, because I thought, if that's not true, then nothing's true. I don't know. That's the attitude I had. But I had a really weird feeling about just being done with religion, since the one that I grew up in and believed in was clearly something wasn't right with it. I mean, it just seemed like complete bullshit what I was being told. Not even denying or being able to explain away the Seventh-day Adventist stuff, and then trying to go and get confirmed and being told that you actually do have to be confirmed to get into heaven. The guy had a straight face, he was a priest, he's a Catholic priest. And I just thought, if that's the truth, then I don't want anything to do with this. I don't understand. So then I moved to another state, and I'm just going through this period of time where I don't know what I believe. And at some point, I accepted the fact that this is what it's like to become an atheist. And I thought, well, I got to this point by using my brain, my God-given brain. I didn't ask for it. I didn't ask to be born. I was put in this body with this brain that has the ability to think about things. And if that's a sin, that's God's fault, not mine. And I came to a place where I felt okay with that. I felt pretty peaceful with it. And there was something kind of empowering about it, I guess. At least there was something real about it, at least. And maybe that's what it was. It just, I finally felt a little bit authentic, maybe, for accepting a scary reality. Because of all the fear pounded into your head as a kid growing up, you're going to burn in hell, you're going to burn in hell, don't question, don't even think. Maybe you shouldn't even read the Bible. Just believe. So I dared to think, I dared to ask questions, and unsatisfactory answers came back, and that left me with no religion. And I wasn't an atheist for very long. Around that time, Christmas rolled around. And for the first time, I wasn't going to go to church. I don't do Christmas because I don't believe in God. I don't have a religion. And I went for a walk, and it was like Christmas Eve Mass. I happened to walk past a Catholic church. The doors were open. The choir was singing. It was packed with people. There was, whatever that stuff's called, garland and tinsel and stuff wrapped around the handrails leading up. It was just like a beckoning to come inside, come on in. It's like, come on, man, what are you doing? It's Christmas Eve. And you an atheist now? Like, weird stuff going through my head, just beckoning me to come inside. Come on in, the holy water's fine. So I decided to. I thought, yeah, what am I doing? I don't have to take things so seriously. I don't have all the answers. I'm Catholic still, just go to church. It's Christmas Eve. I went to put my hand on the handrail and my first foot on the first step, and I felt that feeling again. I felt that same feeling that I had when I knelt down in front of Mary crying tears of blood, and it said, what are you doing? Like, why are you ignoring everything that you know? Everything that you didn't imagine all this stuff. You got to this place for a reason. So what are you going to do? You're going to go in there, you're going to be a fraud now if you go in there. That's not real. And so I didn't know what the answer was. I didn't have the answers, but I knew that was no longer my path. At least not in the frame of mind that I was in at the time. But I couldn't go in. So that was probably more scary, honestly. The feeling after not going inside, that's when I realized it was real. Up until then, it was just all kind of in my own head, and maybe I'm an atheist. I don't know, maybe this is what it's like to be an atheist. Like it was a game, like just curious about it. When I decided to listen to that voice, that power, and not go in, it felt heavy this time. It felt heavy and not real happy. But again, there was a feeling of authenticity, and so some empowerment came along with that. It just was what it was. Sometimes it just is what it is. I went back home, and very shortly after this, in my memory, it feels like less than a week's time of my serious undertaking of atheism, my mind started thinking again, and I thought, well, how did we get here? Let's retrace our steps. Like, what has happened? Well, I was raised in Catholicism. What's Catholicism? It's all about Jesus. Who was Jesus? Jesus was a Jew. What are Jews? Are Jews even around anymore? Were Jews like a dinosaur? From Catholic upbringing, they were cursed. They cursed themselves audibly, at Jesus' crucifixion. They were like, may his blood be on us and on our children and on our children's children. Which, incidentally, I remember there being a scene where they said that in Jesus of Nazareth. We used to watch it every year, Mom and I. And I remember thinking as a kid, why would a people curse themselves like that? It seemed super sus to me, even as a kid back then. Anyway, Jesus was a Jew. What are Jews? What do Jews do? I thought to myself. Yeah, Jews still exist, so what do they do? And my atheism was over. I was now on a mission to dig deeper. And what I felt like I was doing was going back to where Catholicism came from. Like, okay, so Catholicism has problems. Where did it come from? Like, it didn't just fall out of the sky. This is the early days of the internet. It's brand new. I mean, we're talking like, I don't know, 1999. And, I mean, I didn't even have a computer. I just got a computer when this started happening. And yeah, it's really crazy how these things happen, the synchronicity of this. I mean, I got my first email address. Mom and Dad got me a cheap computer for like $300. I got internet, dial-up internet, discovered Yahoo chat rooms, religion chat rooms. And so anyway, what's common to a lot of people in this situation is I discovered Messianic Judaism. It's like, yeah, you get to have your Christianity and your Judaism too. Or the other way around, really. That didn't last very long, and it doesn't last very long for a lot of people. Because then I thought, well, let's just keep going. What about before Jesus? What about before Jesus? Jesus was born a Jew. Like, what were the Jews doing before he was born? What's Judaism, basically? What is Judaism? And so that led me on the next 20 years or so of discovering Orthodox Judaism. And I never learned more. I finally found the truth. It answered all my questions. Years later, 20 years later, and getting heavily into the idea of converting Orthodox Judaism, when it hit me at a Friday night after the sun went down, which for those who have ears to hear, let them hear, Shabbat was in effect. And not only that, but here I am, an aspiring convert, and I'm at an elementary school Christmas concert. Of course, they called it like a winter festival now. But I had to go because my son was in choir, and that's what the choir did. That's what they do in small town USA. They have these. They've always had them. And I knew it was a sin, or maybe technically it wasn't for me yet, but it would be, once I was converted. And it hit me, hearing all those kids sing. They were happy, not a care in the world. They've been practicing these songs. There's good cheer in the air. Everyone's in a good mood and happy. It's holiday time. And here I am, the sun went down. I'm thinking, technically, I'm not supposed to be here. And I'm about to take on a life where this will be a sin. And that's when I felt a familiar feeling again. Like a feeling that said something like, and who said you have to take this on? When did God tell you you have to become Jewish? And he didn't. I was just following the steps. I was just following the logical direction that things took me, that the investigation took me, and that's where I wound up. And then everything started to fall away. My sukkah wasn't quite right. The rabbi would tell me, one day you'll learn how to make it completely kosher, And I thought, hey, I worked hard on this. How about some positivity instead of criticism? And I just started noticing all kinds of things. My OCD was on steroids. My judgmentalism towards other people was on steroids. Clearly, I was going to join the chosen people, and I felt like I knew a lot of things that a lot of other people didn't know. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry you don't know these things. I mean, maybe you don't care enough about God, you know? Maybe you're not as holy as I am. I mean, you can be. It takes work. I don't know if you got what it takes. Bullshit, you know? Bad attitude. Stress. It was stressing me out in my life. And I backed out. I backed away. I mean, it was like instant relief. I was waking up stressed out about doing everything right, doing everything in the right order, you know, every day. It rules your every moment. Creativity, you know, was gone because there's no time. There's no time to just be a dreamer and maybe want to allow a song idea to come in, you know. And so I was really glad to back out. But I just think it's interesting if you listen to that inner voice, you know, maybe that is God talking to you. Maybe your conscience really is God talking to you. That's what my mom told me when I was a little kid. Somebody, you know, might hear you say something like that and be like, okay, if you're hearing voices, you're crazy. That's not what I said. It's not what I said. You can listen to yourself, and maybe that self is God Almighty. For God Almighty is in everyone. Be a good person.